I think this is a good moment then to dive into some of the critiques from economists when it comes to Bidenomics. And I'll start with the writer Ezra Klein's memorable analogy of an everything bagel, which I think you later tweeted a picture of. But basically, the critique is that the Biden administration is trying to do too much. So the CHIPS Act, which is about semiconductors, for example, has riders that force companies receiving incentives to build daycare facilities near manufacturing sites. Applicants are also encouraged to offer transportation or housing assistance to employees. And I have to say, all of this is so admirable, but it drives up costs. It delays setup time. And the problem then is that the Department of Commerce hasn't yet doled out money to actually build chip fabs. So let me ask you this. Is Bidenomics trying to do too much?
No, I don't think so. Let me start. There's a few things. When a business makes a decision to invest, when they make a decision for, how they're going to act in the world, they're making a series of decisions. They're making decisions on where to locate. They're making decisions about their suppliers. They're making decisions about how they're going to engage in the environment. Are they going to make sure that they set up all the things that they need to do so there's no pollution? They're making decisions about HR, right? They're making decisions every day about who they're going to hire, how they're going to hire them, what kinds of rules there are, and how they're going to incentivize those to get the best employees that they need for their business. And for too long, we have allowed too many of what we as economists would call the negative externalities to just be negative externalities that nobody has to internalize. So, a classic Econ 101 negative externality is environmental degradation, right? We have a whole agency here in the federal government, the Environmental Protection Agency, that is devoted to making sure that somebody has to internalize those costs, right? When we think about some of the human capital pieces, when you think about workers, making sure that as the United States government, backed by US taxpayer money, is making investments in industries that are going to drive economic competitiveness and are important to the future of the country, both for national security and for economic security, making sure that we are nudging them in the right directions to make decisions that are going to benefit communities and people and families as they are already making those decisions. That is what the Biden administration is focused on. So,
But wouldn't it be more effective to separate those two things? So like you have a CHIPS Act that focuses purely on building fabs, and then a separate policy that incentivizes daycare and elder care and all the other worker rights that we know are necessary.
but that's not the way the world works, right? You're setting up a chip fab, you're making all of these decisions as you're setting it up. And so so you want to get in at the ground floor. You want to make sure that those decisions are being made in the right direction, and not leaving it all to just enforcement at the latter end, but making sure that proactively you're saying, these are our values, these are things that are important to the American people, these are the things that are important to communities. These are also things that, by the way, there's a long list of literature shows improve productivity and outcomes for those businesses. So you think about childcare, there's a lot of businesses that already do that, right? Because they know that making sure that their workers have access to care is imperative for their own bottom line. But here's the thing that we know when we talk to businesses large and small, not everybody reads all of the economic and sociology and policy literature. So saying, hey, this is best in class practice, and so we're encouraging you to do that. That's what we're doing. We're helping, to push things in the right direction. And so I don't think that, so again, those businesses are going to make decisions anyway.
But I don't think anyone's questioning the intention here. I mean, everything you're saying is well-meaning. Ultimately, it's almost impossible to disagree, other than the fact that money hasn't really been dispersed yet, and so clearly this is
That's
slowing things down.
I don't think that is, I have not seen evidence that this is slowing things down. What I have seen in the data certainly is a massive spike in the construction of manufacturing facilities across the country, a spike that we haven't seen anything like this in over 40 years. So that is an indication that businesses are out there. We put up these maps on invest.gov that show not only all the places where we are making investments in infrastructure, but all of the private sector investments that have been announced. And it is full of dots. And I believe that there's dots in every state at this point for all kinds of investments that are happening. And we know that it takes time to go through these processes. We need to make sure that we're doing things right, that we're spending taxpayer dollar money in the way that in a way that is smart and sensible. But there is also an urgency, and I think it's actually been quite striking. In fact, there were a number of columns that I was reading over the past few days, noting how striking it is, how fast many of these investments are going relative to what people predicted just a year ago before the CHIPS and Science Act and the Inflation Reduction Act crossed the finish line.